Hey, what's up, guys? Today I'm going to be teaching you how to make an iPhone app. Get excited. My name is Stefan. I recently delivered my own iPhone app to the App Store. You can check it out if you want. It's called EasyCalcs. That's EazyCalx. Anyway, let's get right into it. This is the app we are going to be creating. It's a login screen. And all it's going to do is you're going to program in a particular combination of username and password that's going to work when you hit the go button, and it's going to look something like this. So I got Pablo Escobar here. We're going to hit go, and it's going to come up with welcome Pablo. That's just our username. Okay. Um, all you're going to need to do this is a Mac computer. Unfortunately, yes, you do need a Mac computer to build iPhone apps. Second, you're going to need to download Xcode. That is the application that is going to be used to do all your coding, all your interface building, so on and so forth. And it's free in the App Store. Just go search Xcode and it'll come right up. Just download and install. We'll provide a link for you if you need it. And once you get that done, we're going to go ahead and click on Xcode. Okay, so what we are going to do now is go to create a new Xcode project. Click on that. All right, now you go to single view application. It should be automatically selected and you hit next. Okay, product name is going to be called login. You can call it whatever you want, practice project, it doesn't matter. And then the team, just select whatever comes up from the drop down menu. I think it's linked to your Apple ID. Okay, and then organization name, you can just type your first and last name or whatever you want. You can make up your own company, go for it. And organization identifier, same thing. It just has to be one word, okay? And then make sure the language you have selected is Swift. That is the language that, it's one of two languages that you are able to use to build iPhone apps. I prefer Swift. Swift is the way of the future. It's much easier to read, much easier to use, and that's what we are going to be using in this tutorial. Okay, and then devices universal is fine, and make none of that stuff is checked is fine as well. And hit next, and then you're going to hit create. Replace. Okay, now what's going to come up is your information about your project. Okay, don't need to worry about any of this stuff right now. It's all good. What we're going to do is we're just going to go over to this little left workspace here, and you're going to see something called main storyboard, and you're going to click on that. We're just going to jump right into this, guys. I know you probably are excited, or hopefully you're excited, and you want to get going with this app. Okay, so this is what's going to be called your view. Okay, this is what you are going to see when you run your app, and this is what we are going to place objects onto. Objects being what you see down here in the right-hand corner, the lower right-hand corner. And we are going to get started with that in a second. Just make sure that you have the button selected that says show the object library. Okay, so once we have that done, we are going to go ahead and put a label on here first. Remember, we want to make our view look like this. You see, it looks just like this. So we're going to create a login label. We're going to have two text fields, a go button, and then a welcome label. Okay, so let's go ahead and get that done. You can click and drag label onto there, or if you don't see it, just go to the filter, type label in the text box, and drag it onto your screen. Okay, we can put it anywhere. Doesn't really matter. Right there is fine. If you want an exact measurement, you can go up here to the right, go to your size inspector, and you can adjust the X and Y position and the width and the height. So let's make Y 100. Okay. Okay. Now just hop back over to the attributes inspector. I'll explain what all this is in a little bit here, guys. Don't worry. And that's good there. Okay, so next we need to create our text boxes. So go here, type in text, and just drag it on up. Super cool. Apple's interface makes this really easy to build apps. I'm a huge fan of it. I've checked out Android stuff before, and it's nowhere near this easy. Doesn't have this level of functionality, which is why I prefer using the Apple's interface. Anyway, we are going to click on this guy, and this is our text box, like I said, and then you are just going to drag it over all the way to the left. And you're going to see these little blue lines here. These are guidelines on where we are going to want to place our elements. They just help you make sure everything is lined up evenly and everything looks nice. It's a huge help. Okay, so now we don't need to drag another text box up. That's just more work for us, and I'm lazy. I like doing as little work as possible when it comes to this stuff. So what's a really cool feature is you can just click on the text box and you can hit Command D, and that's just going to duplicate it. It's going to be the exact size and everything. And then you're going to see all these blue lines here. You want to make sure you see all those, and then you just drag it up until it kind of locks into place and you see another blue line come up on top of it. Okay, that's just going to make sure the spacing is nice and that we're all good. So that's looking good. Okay, now we want our button. So we are going to drag this button over here. Same thing, just put it right there. You can put it wherever you want. This just looks neater to me, so that's what I'm doing. Double click that, and now we can change the text. So let's just hit go with an exclamation point. And we forgot to do that up here, so let's go ahead and do that. Label is just going to be called login, right? And make sure it's still nice and centered. We're good. Okay. And then we want the welcome label down here. So like I said, we don't need to go here and search label again. It's just going to be the same thing, just different text, okay? So you can actually hit Command D there. You hold down Command, hit D, and we're going to drag that. Let's just do it to the center of the page. Okay. And we're actually going to make this wider. Just like so. Just drag it over until you see the blue lines, just like we did with the text field. And then you notice how it's not centered. We want it to be centered, just like we saw in our app here, right? Okay, so all you're going to do is you're going to go over to the right where you see the attributes inspector. If you don't see it, you can just click this little icon up here in the upper right. It's going to bring it into view and out of view. And then make sure the attributes icon is selected. Okay, and then we're just going to go to alignment, and we are going to hit center, and it just takes care of that for us. Okay, and if you guys noticed when we opened the app, there was a little placeholder text in here. That's as simple as, okay, we want it to be username, and you just type that in, hit enter, and again, notice how it's not centered. We can do that by just clicking right there, and then we're going to do the same thing for our password. Boom, enter, center, right. Okay, so now the user knows that this is where they're going to type in their username and password. And this is, like I said, just placeholder text, so whenever they start typing, it's just going to overwrite that text. Okay, so let's run this and make sure it's looking good. So you can come up here and select whichever device you want to run it on, right? You just hit, I like doing it on an iPhone 6. It takes less time to run because the screen is less large. And it's actually the phone I have, so it helps me visualize what it would look like on my phone. You can actually just hit play, or you can hit Command R, okay? And if everything goes according to plan, we should see build succeeded, and then it is going to pop up in our simulator. Let's give it a second here. Okay, it's looking good, guys. Actually, we need to change this text to welcome. Forgot to do that. But here we can start typing stuff in. So we can say Stefan Dallas, it's my name. And we can hit go, but nothing's going to happen. You notice that, right? I mean, the button works, but there's no actions are happening right now. And that's because we haven't coded anything in. What the code is going to do is it's going to be linked to this view here. And it's basically just going to be providing it with instructions on what to do if certain conditions are met. If that doesn't make sense, hopefully it will in a second here for you guys. Okay, so let's go back into our project and just type in welcome. Don't worry about typing in the username yet. We don't know what that is until runtime, actually. So what we want to happen is we want this to say welcome and then whatever the user typed in into the username if the login is successful. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Now just close out of this guy by clicking this button up here on the right. And then we are going to open what's called our assistant editor. This is editor. This is a really cool feature that's provided by Xcode. And what it does, okay, let's close this guy here on the left to give us some more room too. And this is the file, the Swift file that is going to be linked to our view. This is called a view controller. And it's called a view controller because essentially it's controlling what the view does. This is where we're going to write our instructions on what we want this to do. You can sort of think of this as a car with no computer. All the mechanical components are there. However, there is no instructions on what we want it to do. Correct? Right. So let's go ahead and dive into that. Okay, first off, we don't need this did receive memory warning. Okay, let's just clean the code up a little bit, and we can go ahead and get started. Okay, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to connect things to the code. Okay, what I mean by that is we're going to want to connect certain elements of this view over to our code. And what that's going to do is it's going to provide us with access points to these things to reference in our code so we can write instructions for what we want it to do. Now, we don't need to do that for everything in here. We just need to do it for things that we're going to need to check, like say the values of. So we're going to need to check the value or the text that the user puts into this username text box. Same with the password. We're gonna need to write instructions for the go button on what we want it to do when it's clicked. And we're going to need to connect this label as well because that's going to change based on what happens when we click the go button. And let's go ahead and start doing that. So this is a really cool feature. It's as simple as doing this. You click on the text field, you hold down Control, and then you just click on it and you drag right on over to your code. And check this out. It's going to connect it to our code automatically. We don't have to write any code to do this. I think that's a really cool feature that Xcode provides. So we're just going to call it username, just like that. And you're going to hit connect. Okay, now you notice it's connected. Don't really worry about what all these things mean here. This is basically just saying that this is an interface builder outlet. This is an outlet from the interface. Don't worry about the weak. It's a variable called username. And when you see this colon here, that means it's of the type UI text field. So that means it's going to inherit all the properties and characteristics that Apple has built in for us that a UI text field is able to do. Okay? If that doesn't make sense, don't worry. It will later on once we start getting into the code. Okay, we're also going to want to connect the password. So do the same thing. Click on the password field, hold down Control, and then just drag it over. Type in password for the name. Make sure outlet is selected, and then hit connect. Okay, good to go there. We're going to connect the go button here in a second. That's a little different because it's an action, okay? It's a button. So we're going to connect this guy now, the label, and let's just call that welcome label. And you notice it automatically reads it as a label. Swift and Xcode really make almost everything as easy as possible for you. They make you have to work very, very little amounts, which I really like. Okay, so that's your welcome label. Now all we need to do is connect our go button. Okay, so underneath this function, do did load, which I'm going to explain in a second. Just give yourself some space. Okay, and then we are going to connect. We're going to click on the go button, and then we are going to hold down Control the same way we did, and we're going to drag it on over. Okay, now don't connect it just yet. You're going to make sure that we connect this as an action and not as a outlet because it's a button. Now we can just type this in as go button and make sure you change the type from any to UI button. Okay. Don't worry about why right now. We'll learn about that later on. Then we're just going to go ahead and click connect. Make sure you have touch up inside and sender selected. Okay. Now you're going to see this is a little different than these guys, like I said, because it's an action. This is an outlet. This is an action. And you're going to see these two little brackets here. Just enter down. And what these brackets signify is anything that happens in between these two brackets is going to be executed when we select or click on our go button. Okay, so we're going to write some instructions here. And what's going to happen when we click on the go button is those instructions are going to be executed. That's essentially what coding is. It's basically just writing instructions for what you want your computer to do or your application to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. So the idea behind what we want to do is we want to say if the username is equal to some username and if the password is equal to some password, then when we hit go, we want this welcome button or this welcome label to change. Okay, so that's why we're working inside of our go button brackets because that's what we want to check these values when they're pressed or when we press this, make sure they're what we want it to be, and we want it to work if and only if those values are what we want. So let's do that. So in programming, you're going to have these things called if statements. It's a way to write some logic for what you want to happen. Basically, all it's saying is if these conditions are met, then this code is executed. So it's as simple as doing this. You're going to say if, right? And then this is our access point to the username text field, right? Remember, that's what happened when we connected it to our code. So that's just giving us an access point to that to make sure we can write instructions for it. So we're going to say username. And then we're going to say .text. And what that means is it's just going to grab whatever text is in the username text field when this go button is pressed that the user had typed in, right? So, and then now you can just make up whatever username you want. Put it inside quotes after you type 2 equal signs. In programming, that just means is equal to, okay? Then write 2 quotes, and then you're going to, my name was Pablo, okay? So basically, that's going to check if the username is Pablo. And then it has to be a username and a password. So it has to be a particular password for a particular username, right? So now this is going to be an AND condition. So in programming or in Swift, what you're going to do is you're going to type 2 ampersands, okay? And then you're going to say password dot text. Again, that's our access point, password. See how when I click this, it's underlined? That means that I'm using this access point. Now, I'm going to say .text. And again, what that's going to do is it's going to grab whatever text is in that text field. And then you're going to want to say is equal to Escobar. Make sure your quote's closed, okay? And then you are going to do an open curly bracket. You're going to hit enter, and it should automatically create your closed curly bracket for you. And so what we have here is an if statement inside of our go button action, right? And I'll give everything one more explanation once we get through all the code. I know you guys are going to see if this works or not. So right now we have if username.text equals Pablo and password.text equals Escobar. Then we want to change this welcome label text. All right, so we're going to say welcome label dot text is equal to here you only type 1 equal sign because you're not checking if it's equal to something. You're setting it equal to something. So you're only going to type 1 equal sign. Don't worry about that right now. This is right, but if you were to get it wrong, Swift would come up with a little message and correct it for you. So we're going to say welcome label.text is equal to, for now we're just going to do it like this, and then we'll do it how we had working in the app in a second. We're going to say welcome label.text equals username.text, right? And you're probably like, why are we typing Pablo? Okay, that is not considered best practices when you're programming. That's what's known as hard coding. See, I could type in Pablo here, right? I could say, hey, this is equal to welcome Pablo, right? But what happens if I change this username? Say I want to change this to Stefan. Then I have to go here and I have to change it to Stefan every single time I code it, or every single time I change the username. What I want to happen is that I just want this to say welcome and then whatever username was in the text field, right? So that is done by just saying username.text. If you guys don't understand that, we can go into it a little more later. Okay, well, let's change this back to Pablo. My last name is not Escobar. That would be pretty cool though. Anyway, so this is working now. Now let's run it and check and see if our code works. All right. So let's wait, see for this to come up. All right, let's check it out. So let's see. If we hit the go button, nothing is happening, right? That's because it doesn't meet our conditions that we imposed, okay? So now let's do it properly. Hit go. Let's save this and run it again. That should have worked, but it didn't. Let's see, we get some little bit of debugging practice. Escobar. There we go. It changes to Pablo. Okay. Now, remember before we wanted to say welcome Pablo, and initially this doesn't come up when this screen loads. So we're going to go ahead and do those things. So what we want to do is we want this to not show up at first, and we only want it to show up if when we hit go, these two values are correct, right? So let's go ahead and get that done in the code. Okay, so we're going to go into our viewDidLoad function, okay? Notice how the comment here says, do any additional setup after loading the view. Okay, don't worry about this typically from a nib stuff. So essentially when this view loads, we want that welcome label to be hidden. Okay, so it's as simple as this. Remember our access point is welcome label. Okay, so we're going to type in welcome label dot is hidden. Okay, that's the command that's going to hide this for us. And we're going to say equals true. Okay, that's just saying that is hidden is equal to true, meaning this thing is going to be hidden when we load our view. Okay, and then when we hit our go button, if our conditions are met, we want that to be false, meaning we want it to show up. Welcome label dot is hidden equals false. Okay, and then we want to change our text here. So text has to be within quotes. That's known as a string in programming. So we're going to type in welcome because that's what we want welcome to come up, and then the username. Okay, but you're like, okay, username.text isn't within quotes, and it's not. You're right. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to insert that into our string, right, in between these quotes. But we can't just type username.text like this. Okay, then it's going to say welcome username.text. It's going to interpret that. It's going to interpret that literally. Okay, so what you do is in Swift you put two parentheses around this guy, right, and then a backslash in front of it. Okay, see how it comes up in blue now? My editor is in dark mode. I can show you guys how to do that in a little bit. Yours will come up as purple or something. The string will be a different color than this guy. And you see, like I said, when we click on this, it also underlines with the value that we have that information stored within. Okay, so this is a string. It's equal to Pablo, but this is more so of a container that this information is stored in. That's what you can think of it as. It's just going to grab the text from the username text field. Okay, so now let's see if that works. Just go ahead and run it. Hit Command R. Okay, now that's good. It's not showing up, which is what we wanted. Okay, now like I said, if we hit go, it's not going to show up. So we're going to type in Pablo and Escobar, right? And you guys are going to notice these don't have quotes around them either, and that's because the computer program is just going to grab whatever is inside of the quotes. You're not going to need to type in the quotes as well. You are going to, however, need to make sure your capital letters match up. Okay, then you're going to hit go, and it's going to say welcome Pablo. It's going to have this optional guy in front of it, and I'll explain to you what that means in a second. Okay, so everything is working. We just have an optional coming up, and what an optional is, it's something that was introduced in Swift. And basically, it's saying that when a value is optional, it's either going to have a value or it's not. Excuse me. So the program doesn't know whether or not this text field is going to have a value in it, right? So it declares it as an optional. That's just for safety, meaning that, okay, I'm going to cover myself here and make sure that if this doesn't have a value, that I'm covered, right? So what you have to do is you have to do something called unwrapping an optional. So that thing is sort of, it's being treated as an optional, like I said, and if you want it to not be treated as an optional, you need to do something called force unwrapping. Okay, we can go more into optionals later, but essentially all you do is you type an exclamation point after username.text, the same way you see up here. Make sure you do it within the parentheses and not outside the parentheses. If you do it outside the parentheses, that would come up as an exclamation point in the label, as you see here. The username.text, when you type in the exclamation point after that, it's just going to unwrap the optional value and say, hey, this thing does have a value. This thing is a string, and I don't want it to be considered as an optional anymore. Let's give that a run and check and see if it's good, and then we will be all done. Okay, it's not coming up. It's good. Pablo Escobar. It's not working. Okay, we need to save this and run it again. Let's hit Command S and then save, which is what saves it. Sorry. All right, Pablo Escobar. And then it says, welcome, Pablo, which is exactly what we wanted. Okay. I hope that was okay for you guys. I know it's a lot of information to take in at once. We covered interface building. We covered some programming stuff, which you may or may not know. But like I said, it was pretty simple. It's just a couple lines of code. It's just connecting a couple things to the code and using some logic, utilizing the isHidden function or the command. And yeah, that's it. More videos to come soon, guys. We'll be expanding upon this project, doing some cool stuff. We're going to do it where we can add in multiple usernames and passwords. I'm going to teach you how to do that. And yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed, and hope you continue to watch. Thanks. Signing off.